Hello everybody, welcome to Rebel High Command Cast. This is a subsidiary of the IA Command YouTube channel and an Imperial Assault podcast that dares to ask the question, is a game truly dead if we choose not to let it die? I'm your host, TV Boy, aka Noah. This is episode 2, and today I am joined by co-host Wesley, aka TheSecondFlock. Welcome back.
Hey everyone.
And we also have Blaide joining us today. Blaide, thanks for coming on and joining the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So today we're going to be talking about the tournament that happened on the September 10th, and it just wrapped up with the final match that happened last night. As of this recording, we live streamed it, so we're going to get into that. We're also going to be talking before that about our sort of side topic is going to be why players should try Skirmish, or play Skirmish, or play more Skirmish. If you're listening to this and you're just a casual Imperial Assault fan, maybe you've played Campaign or played the app, but you're not sure about Skirmish, we're going to try and convince you and tell you why Skirmish is awesome. So let's get into the... We'll talk first about, I like to go over some games we've played. Guys, what games have you played other than Blaide? I know you played in the tournament, but we're going to talk about that later. But any like league games or any fun skirmish games you've had since we last recorded? Why don't you go?
I did play... Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Blaide. I was going to call one of you out.
Yeah, I did get a chance to play my league match from, I guess it was last week. Actually, it was against Lucas, who was my round 2 opponent in the tournament. I was trying out the next figure that I sort of want to look at and try to make work is Bosk, because I don't think I've ever really seen anybody using him. So I sat down, I made like a Bosk brawlers list. He was running Han, Chewie, Cassian. And I called it at the end of round 1 because Bosk and Shiloh were dead, so it did not go so great. Did not really think of the interaction between Cassian and Thatʻs Repaid, so he was able to get like a big second activation with Chewie by killing off 3PO with Cassian. And I had pushed up my figures pretty far just to try to get him set up for round 2, and yeah, so Bosk did not really do very much that game, so I'll have to go back to the drawing board, I think.
Nice. And I've had a couple of games with the newcomer to the group. I think his name is Chris. And on his first day, I was able to play a game with him. I tried out a new list. I wanted to focus on Viv Bodrick, but putting him in the Scum faction and seeing how he does there with Under Duress. I think I considered Prey on the Weak, and that was the original idea, but I kind of dropped that for Under Duress. So I was running Viv Bodrick, the Mandalorian HK-47, and a Claudite Shapeshifter. I wanted to get those power tokens to offset Viv Bodrick's -1 damage. And it was a great game, mostly because I was able to help Chris kind of onboard to Skirmish and learn a lot of the ins and outs of how to use Vassal and everything like that. Biv got to do a lot of stuff. I'm drawing a blank on really what Chris was running. He is more interested right now in playing a lot of different fun-looking figures, so it was a bit of a hodgepodge. I think he had Cad Bane, and Cad Bane got taken out round 1 by a surprise Biv attack at the end.
Nice. Yeah, since I played my league game against Dylan, and that went up on the YouTube channel, so you guys can check that out. I've been having fun with this Scum list that has Onar Vinto, HK-47 with Headhunter, and Hired Gun Group. And Vinto's actually been a lot of fun. I kind of written him off a long time ago, even before IACP, but he's been working out really well for me in this list with... and with Dr. Afra as well. And I played Dylan, that, like I said, that's on the channel, and then I just recently played my second week game against Kyle. That's going to be going up sometime this week, and he was playing his Tarot Dewback list with Snowtroopers, and it was on the Mos Eisley map where you have to hold and control the objectives, and that did not go so well for me, but I felt like I didn't make any like huge mistakes, like technical mistakes, so that felt good for me just to have gotten the rust out of my system, I think. Where now I think I can actually focus on like being more strategic and thinking about win conditions and how I'm supposed to like play to the map and play against a list rather than just trying not to trip over myself anymore, forgetting abilities and putting figures in the wrong place. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, and that'll be fun to go over when I go back and look at the game log for the channel. I'll do housekeeping here, and let's go into what's going on in IA in the news for Imperial Assault. Alright, so we really only have one big community update for housekeeping this week, and that is that there is a new custom campaign that was released. This was posted by a player named Jonathan Pierce on Board Game Geek forums. He also shared it on Facebook and Reddit, but links back to this page. So this is a brand new custom campaign. It uses normal rules, but it's got new cards that you have to print out, and it comes with this really sweet art that he had commissioned for the cover. And you can play it with any of the heroes, and you have to download it and check out. There's a rule book and cards, and it's got 12 new missions, some side missions. It's got some new enemy types. It looks pretty sweet, so definitely check that out if you're a fan of campaign and you're looking for a new campaign. Give it a try. He did mention that it's not particularly extensively play tested, so it would be a good opportunity to give some feedback. But here you can see some of the custom cards he's made for this release, which is again pretty sweet. So check that out. And all right, back to the discussion. All right, so we're back. Didn't have any listener mail to go over for Comms Chatter this week, but we did have a interesting rules question that came up, actually from Wesley. Wesley, you asked in the Slack about the cunning ability and how does that work with changing results, and just how does that work in general?
Right. Yeah, I did play another game against Chris since we last spoke. And I had a Royal Guard champion playing Parting Blow on a Han who was trying to on the lamb away. And I went in with Feint when I saw him roll a dodge evade, because he was going to get another block or two. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that if I get rid of his evade, I'm going to get rid of his cunning blocks, but I'm not entirely sure how this all works, how dynamic cunning actually is as an ability.
Yeah, so it can be kind of odd looking at cunning the way it's worded. Some people might think it's like a constant ability that keeps applying blocks based on how many evade results are still in the defense results. But the rules are pretty specific on when while defending and while attacking abilities apply. It says in the rulebook that if you have an ability that says while attacking, while defending, you can use that ability anytime during the attack except for, and then it lists situations where that's not true, and one of those is if that ability is adding modifiers or if is modifying the dice results. You have to do it during step 4 of the attack steps, and I think maybe for a future episode we'll get into get deep into the attack steps or steps of an attack. I think because it's very important for players to learn how that works and how those steps work. But basically, and then the other rule is that an ability can only apply once per timing window. So cunning will only happen once, and it will happen during step 4 of the attack when the defender modifies their defense results. So anything that happens up to that point between rolling the defense dice and then cunning actually getting to trigger, if anything removes an evade result, like weaken or tough luck, removing it off of a reroll, the attacker removing dice results with something like heightened reflexes, or playing lock on to remove a dice result, those would all result in cunning. When it does get applied, it will have less evades to add blocks.
Right, that clears it up quite a bit. I think the last nuance here would be Does it matter what order the defender plays cunning in if they were to add more results during that one step?
Yeah, so the defender can choose when to apply each of their abilities if they're in the same timing window. So if they have something like, say, parry, if or I don't know if there's any cunning figures that can use it. I guess the Nexu can. So like if say the Nexu were to play parry, he would that player could then choose to apply cunning afterwards. But if they make the mistake of using the cunning first and then using parry, they wouldn't get to benefit from that +1 block off of the extra evade from parry. So really, just want to use cunning last in step 4.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so let's move into our first main topic here. We've got 2, and it's why skirmish is awesome, and why people who play Imperial Assault and maybe haven't tried skirmish should think about giving it a try. So I'll kind of start us off here. For those that are uninitiated and haven't really looked into it, skirmish is a play form of Imperial Assault. So Imperial Assault has different ways to play. The main one being the campaign that a lot of people know and try, which is one versus many game. And then you have the app campaign, which is pure co-op, playing against the app, multiple players. And then the third main mode, or second main mode, when the game first came out, is skirmish, which is where you take the deployment cards that were included in the campaign game, not including the large hero sheets, and you count up the deployment points at the top left, and you build a list or an army until you have 40 points of those deployment cards. And they all have to be in the same faction, although there's some cards that let you mix factions. And then you also take all those cool command cards that came in your box, your core box that you don't ever use in the campaign, and you get to build a deck out of those of 15 cards with 15 total points. All of the cards have a points cost at the bottom left, so you build a deck. And then you play on one of the many skirmish maps that are provided. The core game has, I think it has 2, because there's one with Vader and one came with Luke. Actually, it comes with 3 because there's one in the core box itself. But there's so many. Each expansion comes with a different skirmish map, including all the little figure packs. So I think there's like 40 or 50 skirmish maps in the game. And you take your little army of 40 points, and your opponent takes theirs, and you play a game that's actually symmetrical instead of playing where one player has all the information and all the toys, and then there's just the other players are playing one figure each. You have a whole group of figures that is theoretically equal in power to your opponent's 40 points. That's how the game is balanced. And then you get to play. Usually there's some objectives. You can always go watch my videos featuring skirmish games, and it's fun. And I think the main draw is that it's an equal playing field, and there's a chance to really prove skill compared to the other modes where it's not equal, it's not symmetrical, and there's more variance in those modes over like, is this actually balanced, and did I actually outplay my opponent, or did I get outplayed by the mission or the scenario or some other thing that wasn't taken into account and balanced for. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I think, Blaide, why don't you start? What do you think about skirmish, and what do you think are some of the highs and lows of skirmish, and why it's such an awesome and fun game mode?
Yeah, so I think, and I probably have a little bit of a different perspective than the two of you, maybe, because I've literally never played campaign. I guess like just sort of background. I bought Imperial Assault off of like Craigslist or something. I had no idea what it was. I think I literally typed Star Wars board game one day, and I just saw some guy was selling it, and I looked up the actual price, and he was selling it for like half off. So I was like, yeah, I'll go check it out. Um, had never played anything like it. Didn't have like an established play group or anything like that. So I brought it home and just started looking into it. And was like, what have I gotten myself into? Like, there's so many cards and parts, and I was like, this is, before that, the most complicated game I'd ever played was probably Star Wars Epic Duels, which, if you've ever played that, that is not a very complicated game. So I'm not gonna say complicated, I'll say complex. That game's not very complex compared to something like IA. So I went to YouTube, just started looking stuff up. Most of the stuff on YouTube is skirmish related, just because I think that's a little bit of a better format for something like YouTube. So I just sort of taught myself how to play the game. I ended up finding a store that was sort of near me that they met on, Tuesday nights or whatever it was to play skirmish, and just got plugged in. And I've loved it. I think skirmish is great because, like you said, it is you're balanced. You are able to have, um, if you're into any sort of like list building and theory crafting, that you're able to go in and whether it be I just want to build like a thematic list of all Jedis or all troopers, or if you say, you know what, Darth Vader's my favorite figure in all of Star Wars, I'm just going to build a list and put Darth Vader in it and see where it goes. You just have the freedom to sort of create something to bring to the table. It's one of those where the problem that I personally found with campaign is that I just never found a group of. Ideally, you want five people, I guess, to come together on a semi-regular basis to play campaign missions. And just like where I lived and some things like that, I never really had a group like that. But skirmish is just much easier because you only need one person. You can come together and it can take about an hour. You can say, hey, let's just meet up, play a skirmish game. That's just, maybe a couple hours out of your day, as opposed to, when you're trying to commit to a campaign, it's like we're going to need to get a group of people together for, however many, I don't even know how many missions are in a campaign, but so it's easy just to sort of to get together, play skirmish. Myself, I've been in the competitive community for a while, so that's sort of where I tend to lean with it. I enjoy, trying to make lists that are going to be as efficient as possible, and just enjoy sort of, I guess I would say the high end of competitive play. I've been to regionals, I was able to go to U.S. nationals. I was supposed to go to the Worlds in 2020, and before that kind of got shut down. And so I've been loving the IACP just to keep up that sort of competitive itch. But on the flip side, you can also be very casual with skirmish. You can, I know, like when I play with my brother-in-laws, I'll usually just throw together a couple of thematic lists, with Rebels versus Empire or something like that, and just get together and have fun. And you don't have to be so competitive with it. So I think it caters to a wide range of players in terms of if you want to, if you are competitive, if you want to get into something and try to be, build a list together and be efficient and just get out there and win games, you can do that. But you can also just be casual and just get together with a buddy and have some fun, moving Star Wars figures around on the board. So, I love skirmish, and I will definitely go to bat anytime someone is asking about it. I always enjoyed going to back when I would go to a store regularly and meet. You'd always be have people come up and just be interested in what you're playing because Star Wars is such a well-known and such a popular um, IP, and so having people come up and just seeing the Rancor or the ATDP or Darth Vader on a table is enough to sort of draw someone in and say, hey, this game looks interesting. So I always love telling people just about the game and sort of what it does. So. Um, yeah, I think that's sort of my spiel on skirmish.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I could take it from here then on my side here. So yeah, I have played through a few campaigns, and even more recently, I've run through two campaigns, one as a rebel, one as an empire. But with the one where I was the empire, especially, I think Noah hit the nail on the head when he said you don't really know sometimes whether you're losing because you're getting outplayed or because of all of the things you get on the map that are, on the Empire side and kind of trying to overrun the rebels. You don't have that same information. because of the asymmetrical gameplay. And where I was running as the Imperial, I had one player constantly complaining about these reasons. He wanted to be competitive, and the rest of the team was trying to be a little more casual, so there was a desync with how his own team wanted to play. But when he asked me to competitively try to beat him, and I would start defeating them each match, he would start looking to every different aspect of the game, like, okay, well, this doesn't seem balanced because you get too many figures. This isn't, if we had done the mission again and I knew it was going to come up, maybe we would have done better here. And my response is, okay, well, then we should try skirmish, because in a skirmish mode, you bring in your units, you see your opponent's units, you all know what you're starting with. There's almost no surprise that's going to happen. You do have the command deck, but I mean, no more units are going to randomly enter the board unless your opponent is playing a copy of reinforcements, which is a very limited kind of niche pick there. But aside from that, you enter a board with 40 points, your opponent does. You both know what you're getting yourselves into. You both know kind of what command cards are available and what could happen. There's no hidden information. It's kind of as if both players are playing as the Empire player in campaign. And both of them are trying to win the map's objective, which is known to everyone. And when you get to that, it becomes less of a game of, do we get the right rolls on which items we're allowed to get in the upgrade stage for the rebels? Did the Empire get the best influence cards that they can take throughout the campaign? Did they draw the right ones from their influence deck? And it's more of closer to some other competitive card type games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering, where you have the deck you're drawing cards from and you have the dice that roll. That's your randomness. But your skill, your positioning, your ability to outmaneuver your opponent and predict their next few moves is going to mitigate a lot of that randomness, like in those other games, and help you win more because of your own merit. And you're also right that you can play this in a more casual level. You could definitely just put some thematic lists together and smash them into each other and see what happens. I know we saw on the channel recently, Noah posted I think it was him versus a person playing a Mandalorian tribal list where they played all the Mandalorian characters that are in the game. It didn't seem like the most competitive, but it was very defensive, and it was very fun to see what they were trying to accomplish there. So you can definitely have a lot of fun with it outside of just being a campaign in Imperial Assault. And it also adds more agency. Another complaint that the one competitive player that we had in the campaign had is, as a rebel, he felt like, okay, I get maybe one upgrade every couple of hours in game, and it adds one new ability to my two abilities, and that's all I get to do. And maybe I buy an item. In Skirmish, it's just you and one other person, and you have all 20, 30 abilities that are in the map on your side of the field. And you kind of build all the synergies the way that you want them to. So it is more up to you.
Hey guys, I just came back. Sorry about that.
Yep.
I'm afraid I missed the last couple of minutes, but it sounds like you guys are laying out some good points there. I think did we have any more, like, Blaide, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that what Wesley said is great. Like, that was I've run I think the first mission of the campaign a couple different times, just trying to get some interest going with my friends and things like that. And yeah, I think at least for me, I guess maybe I worked a little bit backwards compared to most people, but campaign seems just more limited in what you can do as your one character. Whereas yeah, with skirmish, I think that's just why I like skirmish, because you have, 6, 7, 8 different activations, and so on any given turn, there's so many possibilities of what you can do, and trying to figure out sort of the cat and mouse of what you're doing compared to what your opponent's thinking and what your opponent's trying to accomplish on their end. I think that's why I enjoy skirmish so much. Just there's just so many key decision points in a given game that can completely turn the tide of the game. So figuring out, when those decision points are going to be and how to best maximize and things like that. So
Yeah, I'll just kind of play off what you and or what I heard you say and what I heard Wesley say when I came back. Just the agency thing is really big for me. Like, and I think for a lot of people, like you always hear people online talking about like, well, why can't I bring Han Solo in my campaign? Why do I have to? Why can't? Why is Vader so terrible? And why can't I just use him in my open groups? Why do I have to play through this, like hope that the that I draw this side mission and then hope that the rebels play the side mission and lose, or don't play the side mission and then hope that I can somehow get enough threat in my next mission to, all of that stuff is like these barriers to letting you do what you want to do, and skirmish just lets you do whatever you want to do. Like, you want to play Vader, boom, he's in your list, he's on the table. He costs, he might cost whatever he costs, and especially if you don't use, like, well, I guess Heart of the Empire is not ICP, so he's awesome in skirmish. And same thing with
yeah,
like Han Solo and all those other characters. Like, there's a big focus in both the FFG version of the game and also in IACP. We've continued that to the characters that people love. Like, those are the characters that get pushed and are meant to be powerful, so they're good in skirmish. um, and you can use them however you want, and you don't have to wait for the draw. Like, I mean, you have to wait to see what you draw off your command deck, but you put those cards in your deck. You made that decision. It's not because that's just the preset thing you got stuck with because you thought, because it comes with your character. It's like you get to build everything you want. So, um, and then the other one being the difficulty of like setting up a campaign. And just, I mean, it's people do it. It's not impossible, and you can play campaign with two players, and it works okay. But skirmish is a great way to like play the game when, if you have like a campaign group and like somebody doesn't show up or it's only two of you available, like instead of trying to push through with like campaign, you should definitely give skirmish a try. That's a great way. That's a great excuse to play skirmish. Is when, like, I've had that happen recently. I tried to set up a commander game for Magic, and everybody kind of dropped out except one other person. So we ended up playing Imperial Assault Skirmish, and we had a great time. Um, and then the final thing I wanted to bring up about skirmish is like the balance. So it is tempting sometimes when you're playing a competitive asymmetrical game that has like list building elements. It's tempting to blame the components when you lose, but it's much easier to do in campaign, I feel, than in skirmish, because in campaign, like, nothing is really balanced in campaign. The developers have admitted like they don't really balance. They didn't try to go for competitive balance in when they were doing campaign. They're trying to make sure it flowed and felt fun and was fun to play. But like, if you get screwed over in a campaign in terms of like the missions are not balanced, right? So whereas in skirmish, at least the missions are symmetrical. The maps are close to symmetrical. Some of them are not, to balance out for the advantage of not having initiative round one. But you can basically say that, well, if I lost this mission, it's either because I got outplayed or my opponent made better choices in the list building stage, which again is completely under the player's control. So it's not like you got screwed by the luck of the draw in terms of like what cards you could use. Obviously, you might be restricted by what components you own, but proxying is always welcome in this community, in my experience. And then, yeah, it's a great way to just test your skill and get better at the game, and show off your mastery, but also like show off your creativity. Express what you love about the game and the universe, and you can do that through skirmish. I think a lot more than you can in campaign. Nothing against campaign. We're not bashing campaign. It's just we wanted to highlight some of the great aspects of skirmish that maybe go underappreciated.
yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, Anything else before we jump into the tournament results?
Yeah, as a real quick aside, Blade, you had mentioned that you think that Skirmish is a better format for YouTube, which is what we do see a lot. I just wanted to give a free shout out to one channel, Bleeped Up Productions. They are doing an ongoing IA campaign of the core box, but they put all of the effort into making it a very entertaining watch. Each mission, every component is very highly detailed and painted. But also, they kind of do this narration of how the game's going. They try to add all the tension. They have like a UI. They do a lot of editing with it. Sometimes, they'll say, "Oh, Gideon attacks," and they'll shoot a little Photoshop blaster bolt will fly out and do little sparks, and it'll make a gun sound. So, Bleeped Up Productions. If you do want to see some campaign on YouTube, that's my shout out for today. As a quick aside, to counter what Blade had said.
Well, I have to check them out. That's why I don't think I've tried to watch a few campaigns here and there over the years, and I think that campaign at least. It may just be because I'm not as familiar with campaigns, so it doesn't draw my interest quite as much. But some of them have been a little bit harder to sit down and watch, a 2 hour campaign video. So I'll definitely have to give them a try.
Yeah, they definitely cut it down to each video is only about half an hour per mission that they go through.
Okay, so let's jump into the tournament results. So we had the free IACP tournament, the first Season 7 approved tournament on September 10th, and we had 12 players participate. That was a Saturday morning, and we live streamed it. And Blade, you were one of the players that played in the tournament. So maybe you can give us, before we jump into the lists in detail, maybe you can kind of give us a high-level view of how the tournament went and maybe how it went for you specifically.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to go 3-0 during Swiss that day. I'll just do a brief breakdown of my list because I know we're going to go over some of them here in a few minutes. So, and interestingly enough, I actually took the same exact list to a tournament. I believe it was back in Season 4. A couple of the figures I've gotten a couple of updates since then, but I was running Jedi Luke, Zeb, Mara Jade, Garkon, and then it was just the standard Rebel support, so 3PO, Gideon, and R2, and then I had Balance of the Force in there to get some extra command card points. But I think when I previously ran this list, Zeb had not been updated, and then Jedi Luke did not have the reroll with his new attachment, but everything else is the same. And so, yeah, I managed to go 3-0. It was, I don't know if I just had favorable matchups, or if maybe I was just, for whatever reason, playing pretty well that day, but I think I lost a total of 5 figures in those 3 Swiss games. I lost Garkin twice, and then I think I lost Gideon one game, or something along those lines. So I was able to just take advantage of some timely command card draw. Son of Skywalker played a big role in a couple of games, and also my Jedi Luke managed to dodge, I think, 5 times over the course of those 3 games, which were definitely big swings for me. So had a lot of fun. There were a lot of interesting lists. I think the community, at least me, I wasn't quite sure what I guess the meta was going to be, because this was the first sort of competitive tournament of Season 7, and also after Mando Rising Phoenix is now no longer in the game. Just seeing sort of how the meta would shake out after that. I was pretty interested going into this tournament to see what sort of lists people were running.
Yeah, and I should mention there was a prize on the line, even though this was a free tournament. I had posted that I would, for the winner, whoever was first place, I would send them a set of professionally printed Season 7 deployment cards just to kind of spice things up a little. And I think it worked. I think people took this one pretty seriously, and I think people played their best so they could get that prize sent to them. And I was very happy to see all the different lists that came out to play.
Yeah, I know the cards were definitely a motivator for me. I was pretty interested in getting those professionally printed cards, so that was definitely a good prize on your part.
Yeah, and we're gonna run it back. I'm gonna post up and figure out when people can play in October. So my plan is to do one of these tournaments every month for the rest of the season. So hopefully people get more chances to win that prize, and we'll keep playing and competing and have a reason to compete. The free tournaments with no prizes are fun for people. I think it gives people an excuse to play and hang out, but you add that little incentive, it gets people to really show what can happen and what they can do, and maybe what is broken or what is what is really the best, and the cream rises to the top. So how did your ultimate results go? Like, who did you play, and how far did you end up in the tournament? You said you were undefeated, but how far did you go after that? Because there was a cut to top 4 that was then going to play off in single elimination until there was a first place winner.
So I did, like I said, I did go 3-0 that day. I played first round. I played against Derek, who also made the top 4. Derek was running the super interesting Forlom list that we'll get into in just a minute. That game was, I'll just briefly, because this was just one of the more, well, at least fun. It was fun for me. The more fun opening rounds that I've had in a while. I had Son of Skywalker round 1. He was running the Forlom with Beast Tamer. So at the end of round 1, I ran Luke up 8 spaces, got an attack off on his Forlom. I think it did 5 damage because he was standing next to 3PO. His Forlom activates. He takes a focus shot at Luke. Luke dodges. He plays Wild Fury. Takes another focus shot at Luke. Luke dodges again. And then I played Son of Skywalker. I went up and killed his full health Hondo. And then round 1, I was able to play Take Initiative and move Luke 8 spaces back to my deployment, and on the way finish off his Forlom. So at the start of round 2, I was, 2 of his main attacking figures were removed, and from that point on, I was able to just sort of take objectives and win that game. So that was about as perfectly. If you had sat down and tried to plan a game and say, all right, this is what I want to happen at the end of round 1, I don't think I could have planned it any more perfectly than that. So got a little bit lucky with the card draw and the dodges that game. And then round 2, I played against Lucas, who was running a scum list with HKs and IG-11. We were on the Deveran Garrison map, which is very favorable for Jedi Luke, because Luke can move like 10 spaces and get into the opponent's deployment zone. And the story of that game was round 1, I was able to remove an HK before it activated. And then from that point on, I was able to just sort of slowly take his figures off the board, and I didn't actually lose any figures that game. And then round 3, I played against Tuka, who was who also made the top 4 cut. He was running a interesting Imperial Hunters list. And that was a really fun game on Uskru, so it was a little bit cagey with positioning, but I was able to move Garkin out, and I think I almost removed his Thrawn in a single activation, and then I had Garkin's command card, so he attacked Garkin, did a few damage, I was able to reactivate, and then I had Pummel, so I was able to get off of Pummel and remove Thrawn and an officer and do a good chunk of damage to Mara. And that sort of swung the momentum in my favor. So I was able to take the win in that game. And top 4, I was against Morgan. I ended up losing that game. That game, I think, just went up on your channel pretty recently. It was one of the more interesting games that I've played. Super fun, very close. And if we have time, I wanted to sort of go into this game a little bit more. I don't know if you want me to do that now, or if we want to go over the list first.
No, yeah, let's talk about the game.
Because I have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, let's talk about it now.
Okay, cool. So that game, Morgan was running a Luke and Leia list, which was super, and he had a lot of like defensive tech in there, with knowledge and defense and get behind me and Yoda, being able to force deflect. So I knew going into that game sort of that my number 1 priority was going to be to remove Leia as quickly as possible. And I also, before going into that game, I sort of thought to myself, I don't want to be super aggressive because I want to sort of pick and choose my moments on to when to send people in. But then I drew Son of Skywalker round one again, so I was like, you know what? Screw that game plan. I'm just gonna run Luke in there and try to kill Leia round one, and I was able to do that. Um, and then most of the game, and we just traded figures back and forth. And then I wanted to talk more about the end game because I thought it was a great just I guess example on how you should approach skirmish, especially in a format like this where it is competitive. There is a prize on the line. We got to a point at the end of the game where I think I had removed all of his figures except Finn and Yoda and R2. And it was at the end of the round, and I think Morgan even said, like, we can probably call it here, but let's go ahead and play this out. And of course, I was like, yeah, like I'm not gonna say no. We have to end the game. So I was like, yeah, let's play it out. But I think in my head, I sort of switched. I sort of switched the competitive off because I was like, okay, this game's in the bag. I've got this. And from that point on, I spent the rest of the time trying not to lose instead of trying to win the game. And I think that sort of came back to bite me a little bit. So I just thought that was a pretty cool just moment of whenever you sit down and play a skirmish game, you're playing to 40. Like that's the goal. You want to hit 40 before your opponent. So you should never assume that you're going to win and never assume that you're going to lose. And I think that's what, not that I assumed that I was winning, but I did sort of at the end say, okay, like I should win this. And what can I do not to lose it instead of saying, what can I do to just go out and be sure and win this game? And Morgan's a great player, and it was a great game. And he was able to come back and take the victory. It was a pretty wild game. I think R2 dodged 3 straight attacks at the end, which sort of sealed my fate. But also, if you're trying to bank on killing R2 to win a game, that's not great planning on my part because R2, of course, has a 33% chance to dodge. But just really fun game, back and forth. Morgan's a great opponent, so we had a lot of fun just talking over the course of the game. So, but yeah, it was a little bit heartbreaking to lose that because I was really interested in those command cards, and I knew that going into the finals, I had beaten Derek and Tuka both over the course of the tournament. So I felt pretty good about that matchup either way. But Morgan was able to pull it out with his Luke Leia list. So.
Yeah, I had a question. Early on, you sent in Luke. You sent in Jedi Luke pretty early, or I want to say you kind of dive bombed him into Morgan's deployment zone, but you did it while he still had Luke and Leia left to activate. And I was curious what was the reasoning there going so early instead of waiting till, because I don't know, I think maybe he had last activation on you, but why not wait until he was down to just one activation left?
So the way that, because I was 10 spaces away, I think, and I had Harder Freedom, and
Mm-hmm.
I was worried that if I did not do it at that moment, he would, because like I said, and maybe I was just a little bit too laser focused on removing Leia, but I was worried that um, he was going to activate Leia next and move her to where Luke couldn't get to her. And the way that it worked out with the spacing is Luke was next to Leia, so even if Leia activated and took a shot at Luke and then moved 5 spaces away, I believe I still could have gotten to her to get a double tap with Luke with this free attack and also just attacking as an action. And so I wanted to just ensure the kill on Leia, so that's why I went early. I also, which was a misplay on my part, I had Iron Will in my hand, and so my thought was like, I'm gonna dive Luke in, get these attacks off, have Son of Skywalker, and then I'll have Iron Will to mitigate an attack. But of course, Luke can't use Iron Will.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in my list except for Luke can use that. I get the two mixed up because everybody in the list can use Get Behind Me, and then everybody but Luke can use Iron Will. So I don't know if that would have influenced my decision making in that situation. Because again, I sort of had it that Iron Will was gonna tank an attack for Luke. But then, of course, he can't use it. But I probably still would have done the same thing. Because, like I said, I wanted to. I figured if I took out Leia, that's such a pivotal part of his list. And then I um, figured that Zeb, Garkin, and Mara could do enough against the rest of his list to clean it up. Which is what almost ended up happening. But
Okay, yeah, that makes
um,
sense.
yeah, that's why I committed Luke when I did in that situation.
Okay, well, I mean, congratulations on making it to the top four and being undefeated in Swiss. I thought your list was really cool. Definitely has some powerful cards there, and you've kind of got that theme of like double attacks and multiple activations off the same figure with Garkon and Luke. So, a really cool list, and I hope you do well in the next tournament as well.
Thanks. I was pretty happy with how it played out. Like I said, I had run this list a couple seasons ago, and did not do very well. And I don't remember the command cards. This list is sort of, they're all brawlers, so you can go the parting blow route and just make it super offensive. But my play style has always been, because I played Vader and Empire for most of my IA career. That's what I enjoyed playing. I enjoy just being that just loading up on defensive command cards and just making sure that your figures survive long enough to do what they need to do. So I enjoyed this list a lot because this was the closest thing to an Empire list that I could find running in a different faction. So
Yeah, that was going to be my question because personally I was like, okay, so what was your decision behind not taking the parting blows or even more so the dying lunge here? But I guess that's the defensive playstyle you hold near and dear.
yeah, I think with parting blows, I just get too willing to overextend to try to get off the combo. Excuse me. So playing defensive, it forces me to, which is, I'm sorry, I got something in my throat. Playing defensive like that, which is interesting because the two games that went up, round two and then the top four, I was very aggressive with Luke. So I guess you can do both ways. But in round one and round three, sort of holding back until I got the favorable command card and just the favorable momentum swing. And then this list is great because Zeb, Garkin, and Luke can all move 8 spaces and still get an attack off. So it's a melee list, but it doesn't really play like a melee list a lot of times, because you just have so much range on your figures still.
I mean, I think that's wonderful. The trio of them all having that same theme in common with Zeb this season. It's something I've thought of as well, but I've never really put the list together like you have.
Yeah, Zeb is great. I love just high health figures. And Zeb and Luke both are, I think, 31 health with just those two. And then Garkin and Mara both with get behind me and things like that can usually tank some attacks. So
Yeah. And I think that same defensive playstyle is also what got Morgan the win.
yeah, I think even round one he was able to use get behind me to tank my focus Luke shot on Leia. And Yoda has always been one of the most annoying figures for me to play against, just because his force deflection is just really annoying, and it's always like, do you go for Yoda first, or do just accept that you're going to be taking damage when attacking figures? And Yoda ended up playing a big part in this one at the end because the end game for this one, Zeb. At one point, Zeb had 13 health, and I knew that I needed to kill R2, but he had Yoda and R2 next to each other. So it was like, well, I can't attack R2 right now because Yoda's just going to kill Zeb with force deflection. So there were some interesting mind games that I had to play around in order to try to figure out how to get to 40 at the end there.
I'm glad to
Yeah, I
hear
know
you.
Noah called out.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I know Noah called that out in the review of that log. The part where you definitely could not attack because Yoda would just wipe out whichever attacker you still had over there until they decided to split up and take more VPs.
Yeah, I think there was one time that Yoda and R2 split up, and that was like, okay, this is my moment, and that's when R2 dodged. So, um, but yeah,
Glad to hear you say that about Yoda. That's exactly how he was designed, so
yeah.
he's annoying. All right. Well, before we jump into the list, Wesley, you also casted the Swiss rounds, so you were watching the tournament as it was happening. Did you have any thoughts you wanted to share before we go into the winning lists for the tournament?
I do think that the Forlom list that we saw was very interesting and not something we see often. And I think we did see it in top four, so it was interesting to see that go so far, just because it seems like Forlom was always the priority target here. And I don't think I personally got to see a match where Derek got to run out and do the double or triple attacks to great effect with the Forlom combos. Aside from that, it was also fun to watch double Rancors running up with Herbie piloting those. Um, Great to see. I think we saw this on Deveron Garrison when we casted. We saw each Rancor kind of going in a different direction, and Herbie just playing every single last trick in the book to keep them alive long enough to take out the opponent's figures. But really, the thing that sticks out for me is just how Morgan had a box list without 3PO is how it felt like in a lot of the games we saw him play. And it was to great effect. And I think defensive playstyles are kind of coming out as a very powerful Season 7 play type, especially with the Wonder Twins.
Yeah, so let's jump into it then. We'll go through all the lists here that had a 2-win record in Swiss, starting with the winner. And let's just jump in. We'll talk about each list. So starting with Morgan. So Morgan ended up winning the tournament. We just had the finals last night, like I said, so timely for this recording. So he is playing Rebels, and I've got the list up on the screen for those watching the video. He had Leia Organa, Luke Skywalker hero version from the core box, with Heir to the Jedi, which is the attachment from Season 7. Then he has Fen Cygnus, IACP, Mara Jade IACP, Yoda IACP, then R2-D2, Gideon, Doubt, Balance of the Force, and Heroic Effort. And I realize now, since this is an audio cast, I will call out at the end of each card name whether it's an IACP version or not. So Leia is IACP, Luke is IACP, Heir to the Jedi IACP as well. And then the command cards were Son of Skywalker, Heart of Freedom, Second Chance, Call the Vanguard, Get Behind Me, IACP, There Is No Try, IACP, Knowledge and Defense, which is IACP, Negation, Force Push, Tough Luck, Element of Surprise, There Is Another, IACP, and Planning. So a lot of IACP command cards, more than I usually see in lists, but so this is a Wonder Twins list. Luke and Leia, right? For those who, I think you two have not played since old FFG days. Maybe Blaide, you did.
I came in right after Jabba's was released, so I
Oh,
missed like the old Wonder Twins days.
okay. So yeah. So for the old timers, the veterans of IA Skirmish, Wonder Twins used to be a really competitive list. Probably the best list in Rebels when Return to Hoth came out, and this kind of brings it back. And we saw it a lot in playtesting, and here it is. And interesting that he went with Fen, because that's kind of the question is, well, Wonder Twins is great, but what do you pair with it? And he decided to go with Fen Cygnus, which is funny because I think a lot of people write off as mediocre, even the ICP version, but he's actually, in my opinion, quite good. He's very efficient for 7 points. And then talking about the command deck, and I'll let you guys jump in. I just want to call out a couple things here. So he had Doubt in his list as well, and he made great use of that in combination with Tough Luck to cancel attack dice and keep his figures alive. He also made great use of Yoda's card, which was There Is No Try. This is another card that we very rarely see get played. Just people seem to not like it for 2 points, but since he had Mara in his list who could also play it, he had 2 figures that could reach out 4 spaces to his other 2 Force users, which were Luke and Leia, to give them that die conversion, and we saw him use it quite a few times in the tournament to great effect. So what do you guys have to say about Morgan's list that you wanted to get out? Why don't you go ahead, Wesley, and then Blaide, you can talk about it since you played against it twice.
Yeah, I think the Fen pick, is basically the unexpected. It's like the forlom of this list. Came out of nowhere, doesn't have any trait synergy, but it it was the guy that could run around on the other side of the map if he needed to, while Morgan's main figures kind of stuck together and just did Wonder Twins. I think that's what we saw against you, Blaide, is Fen running off and doing his own thing on Deveron Garrison, while the Wonder Twins were more centered on fighting Luke and maybe Zevon Garkan towards the bottom side of the deployment zone. And I think part of the idea here is you can focus your Mara, your Luke, and your Leia. But as we casted, we were saying that Fen doesn't necessarily need the focus as much because the surges aren't all that great. So I think often Fen got to run around and just kind of do his 7-point thing without the need for having the focus on him. And that allowed more of Morgan's good focused figures to get all the focuses they could ever want. He also, kind of enables that last hit of damage with Havoc Shot and allows for better positioning. He's kind of a Gideon in that he gives people extra movement 2 spaces at the start of the turn, or he can take it for himself and go in for a deep strike. So I think he's kind of that special agent that Morgan needed to spice up the list here. And then it was interesting to see there is no try being used a lot of times to keep his figures alive with, moving a white die to the dodge and converting it to 2 blocks and an evade. But I think in the finals last time, we even saw him use it while attacking to change a surge on a blue die to double damage, or a single damage to double damage, just to confirm a kill against his opponent, which was surprising to see it used offensively too. When I think of that card, I usually think of it as the keep your figure alive card, not the confirm the kill card. Yeah. So it was interesting to see that as a very... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead and finish your thought.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's interesting to see, for as much defensive tech as there is in his command list, There's No Try is kind of doing double duty as both one of your offensive cards and defensive cards, which I think people should revisit whether they take this in a lot of their Rebel lists because of that.
Yeah, definitely. It's very flexible. And I think that Mara being in the list is what enables it. But I wanted to touch on Fen just before I pass it over to Blaide. The other cool thing that he does, like you mentioned, tactical movement, being able to reposition Yoda just middle of the turn without having to activate him is so good. I saw him do it a couple times in his games where he was able to get Yoda into a better spot because Yoda's so slow and he wants to spend his one action to focus somebody, so it can be challenging to keep up with people, to keep that force deflection active. So the tactical movement on Fen, in addition to having Gideon in the list as well, made that a lot better. So, Blaide, what did you think about the list?
Yeah, we because me and Morgan talked for a good bit after our game, and he said that, which I had a similar experience the week before the tournament. We both ran up against, I think, Herbie's double Rancor list, and was like, okay, we need to make some changes because that was probably the list I was most worried about going into the tournament, just because I still don't really know what to do against it, because he has all the defensive tech and everything. So he said that he put Finn in there actually to get guaranteed damage on the Rancor, at the very least, with Havoc Shot is a guaranteed damage, because I believe the way Havoc Shot reads, you can trigger it on the Rancor because the Rancor is a large figure, so you can use it. I don't have it pulled up, but Havoc Shot, I believe, is like you do damage to a figure within 2 spaces of the target space. So, but that's why he said he wanted that's why he chose Finn at the end, was because of the movement that he gives out, and also being able to do at least some guaranteed chip damage. 'Cause I think he said he was trying to run Han, and Han, like he had to focus Han do like 2 damage to a Rancor, and he's like, okay, this isn't it right now. We need to go back to the drawing board. So, um, but yeah, I think Doubt was a great inclusion in this list as well, which I think that also factored into my decision to sort of dive Luke in round one in our game, because I knew that if I didn't, that his focus was going to be removed. So I wanted to take advantage of him being focused, because I knew that if I didn't do that round one, then I probably would need to wait until like the end of round two, and at that point, Morgan would be able to, because I would want to wait to refocus Luke, and Morgan at that point would have been able to move all of his figures probably out of range of Luke. So Doubt is a great include. You don't see that as much now. I know Doubt was pretty popular at the end of FFG days, so. And I think he was able to use the Doubt Tough Luck combo in our game as well to remove an attack dice, if I remember right.
Yeah, that sounds right. So, kind of final thoughts on this list. If people are playing against this list, what do you guys think is like the priority target? How do you beat this list, and like how would you go about fighting it?
I mean, that's the question, isn't it?
So, Blaide, I think you said that killing Leia, you thought was the key, right?
Yeah, at least when I sat down, I figured that Leia is sort of the central figure, being able to get the double attacks off, and then also cycling through command cards. I know that there were, I believe there was one game um, that I watched, maybe his round three game, where he was able to. I think he cycled a command card with Leia, and then that was like he drew it with R2 again, and it was something like pretty useful, like Negation or Heart of Freedom or something along those lines, and he was able to play it back to back essentially. So I knew that that was the main focus for me. I think that's why his list is so interesting, because you may look at it and say, I want to take out Yoda first, but just to prevent Yoda from doing all the things that Yoda does. But Yoda can also, like, people can play Get Behind Me to help protect him, and I feel like that is maybe a little bit of a trap that you can fall into. Because I'm sure from his perspective, if you take out Yoda round one or round two, he doesn't really mind that as much, because at that point Yoda's done his job. He's taken attacks from a lot of his attacking figures. And he's done some damage back using force deflection and that sort of thing. So, to me at least, I think that Leia is certainly Luke and Leia are the two that you really want to focus on if you can remove them, to do so as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I agree. Leia definitely needs to be the first to get taken out. I mean, if you look at it, she's got, I think, one more health than Yoda. She has that evade. But also, I think you have to focus damage on specific figures. This list runs a lot of recovery. Luke and Leia both search for recover too. I think Fenn even has a recover, and he has other abilities I think that can heal a little bit. So you have to. You don't want to get Leia to half health and then wait around and have her go back to 2 damage, and then you've got to start over on working on Leia. I've seen that in a few games.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I almost feel like going after Luke or Leia at first is almost a trap. Just because he has so many defensive cards, he has knowledge and defense, and he has Get Behind Me, and then if you don't kill them, they're just gonna recover off the damage. So I almost think going after Fenn first might be the better play. He's a black die, so you don't have to worry about dodges. He doesn't have as much defensive tricks because he can't benefit from There Is No Try, Yoda's command card, and he can't use knowledge and defense either. He can be protected by Get Behind Me, but he doesn't recover quite as drastically with his recover 1. And yeah, I don't know. I almost think that's the play, right? Is to go for Fenn and just get something off of the table, and then once you've killed Fenn quickly and efficiently, then start working on taking out the Wonder Twins. I don't know, because the games I watched with Morgan is everybody did that. They went after Luke and Leia, and they failed to kill them like at that point, and then they had to deal with Morgan's entire list for the whole game. Whereas normally you're trying to win, get some attrition on your opponent by removing their figures, so you're not taking as much damage. But that never happened to Morgan. He always had his full list for almost the entire games until he started to lose figures late in the game.
That's a really good point. I think in the finals there was a point where all four of his attackers had 5 or 6 damage on them,
Yep.
while his opponent had lost one of their figures and almost another one. And even though everyone tried to focus, just too many cards like Yoda and Get Behind Me were stopping key attacks from taking out Morgan's figures.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's a hard pressure, as we saw in the finals. Thrawn was able to discard Son of Skywalker round 1, which even Morgan thought was huge. But then here Leia comes in, I think early round 2, gets an attack off, shuffles it back, and at the end of round 2, he had managed to draw between R2 and Yoda.
Yeah, we didn't mention Yoda's draw ability is really good in this list as well, working with Leia to dig for those command cards that she shuffles back in. And then my last comment is, there's an easy card you can put in your deck to stop Leia. It's called Rest in Peace. You guys should be playing it. Don't know why you guys don't play Rest in Peace.
Because Leia just came back into meta. That's why people got to learn.
That's my hot tip for the week. Rest in peace. Okay, let's move on. Let's try to get through these because I am starting to run out of time here. I missed Force Russian Urgency there, but I have the list up in the document. Okay, so next one is going to be the finalist, who's Tuka, made it to the finals. He was playing Empire, and he was playing the Grand Inquisitor. Here, I'm going to put it up here. So he was playing Grand Inquisitor IACP, I guess you don't see that, Iden Versio IACP, Mara Jade IACP, Thrawn, BT1 IACP, 3 Imperial Officers, Zillow Technique, Rule by Fear, and Smuggling Compartment. And then his command deck was Lure of the Dark Side, Assassinate, Tools for the Job, Hunt Them Down, which is the Inquisitor's unique card, Price of Glory, Negation, Primary Target, Dark Energy, Disorient, which is interesting, Urgency, Take Initiative, Foresee, which is Thrawn's unique card, Wild Attack, Element of Surprise, and Planning. So some thoughts on this list to start us off with. Great to see Imperial Hunters being a thing, taking advantage of Inquisitor and Mara Jade, who is a hunter when she's included in an Imperial list. Interesting to see Smuggling Compartment here. Not a list I would have expected to see it in, because I'm not sure there's any specific command cards he's really digging for, like Son of Skywalker or anything like that. But Lure of the Dark Side was just insane. I think a lot of people got taken off guard by it, including steering committee members. Derek mentioned that he was not even thinking about it in his game. But it's a card that people are going to have to start really being aware of when you play against dark side force user lists, because it's just more powerful than I think people realize after having been so terrible in its original version for so long. And it can really get you, especially if you leave the wrong figure out and leave other figures in its line of sight. So what do you guys think? Blaide, what did you think of this list? I think you played against Tuka, so...
Yeah, I did. It was pretty cool to see, because I know Tuka's been playing around with this list for, I think, a lot of this season. It's made some changes, and I know he used to have, I think, extra armor in there, and then he's changed it out for Smuggling Compartment. So it's always cool to see someone who's working on a specific list throughout the course of the season, and then to have him bring it to a tournament and make it to the finals was pretty cool. So happy that he was able to find some success with that. Imperial Hunters was something that I played around with quite a bit for a large portion of the beginning of the season as well. And I always found that, and maybe smuggling compartment helped with this a little bit. I always found that it was just too command card dependent. Like if you didn't draw your hunter cards, you just didn't do enough damage.
Mm.
And so I never, but I was also running a lot of times trying out the Purge Troopers. I tried to make Purge Troopers work for the longest before sort of moving on from them. Um, but but yeah, I mean, hunter cards are always going to be good. The Inquisitor I think is a really interesting figure. I've had a lot of fun playing him. He does a lot of cool things now. And then I think I like the inclusion of Thrawn and sorry, Thrawn and Iden in this list a lot. So
Yeah, I do agree. Aiden is good on her own. She doesn't require too much support. Um, so she's good and she has a lot of range to help counter the rest of the list, which is more close range. Thrawn's always good. BT1 I always feel a little weird about, but he does his things. That's good. I do think Hunt Them Down, I'm lukewarm on as a command card, and I think I'm surprised we didn't see heightened reflexes in this list. But I do see the use for smuggling compartment. You've got two 3-point, capstone key command cards. Not only do you want to search for them throughout the game and get them out and get to use them, you definitely don't want your opponent to be able to take those away with spies or HK-47s. So I do see if you have an extra point in your list, smuggling is always one of the top tier picks at this point, I think, next to Doubt.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, the hunt them down one is interesting. I didn't notice he didn't have heightened reflexes. I think maybe the thought process there was the Inquisitor has that minus dodge ability on deadly spin, so he felt like maybe he didn't need it. And the hunt them down, being able to cleave 5 is pretty powerful. Being able to, like on a 7-point figure, to have a big attack and deal 5 damage to another figure in the same activation is pretty strong. So maybe that was the thought there. Yeah, I thought the finals. Oh, sounds like Blaide has to go. Blaide, you heading out?
yeah, sorry guys, we're I'm on vacation, so the family is waiting on me to get some plans started for the day. So
Oh well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about skirmish and the tournament.
yeah, thanks. I hate to have to run a few minutes early, but I appreciate you having me on. I've been a part of this community for a while now, and this is the first time I've gotten a chance to get on for like a podcast or anything like this. So this has been a lot of fun. Enjoyed listening to y'all's first episode, so hopefully you guys can continue to get some episodes out and continue to listen to them. So thank you for all the work you've done in this community, Noah. We're super grateful for all the stuff you've done with your YouTube channel, just as part of the steering committee and everything. So I know that all of this is just done on a volunteer basis. So you and the rest of the steering committee, it's just awesome that you guys set apart time to continue on this game. So the community is just super grateful for you, and I know people probably tell you that, but I just wanted to say it on this episode today. So thank you for all the work that you've been doing, you and the rest of the steering committee.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And feel free to join on another one if you ever want to come back. I know we do the same time every morning, so just let me know if you ever want to join. I'll reach out and let you know.
Awesome. I will definitely do that. So thank you, and thank you, Wesley.
Yep. Thanks for coming on. It's been great to have you.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's cover the rest of these. Oh, go ahead.
I will catch you guys in a little bit.
Nice. All right, well, we'll power through these, and I have to go pretty soon too. So,
Sure.
yeah, the finals was really interesting last night. I got to see it. I feel like I don't know if Tuca could have beat Morgan, because what happened was he put the Inquisitor out in the middle of Uskru, end of round 1, so he could claim those 2 objective tokens, and then start of round 2 he got hit by Call the Vanguard, but he got a dodge, so he was able to survive the combo of Call the Vanguard plus Battlefield Leadership, and he could have used lightsaber throw to hit Fen and then run back and hide, but instead he dive bombed in to try and kill Leia. He had like tools, element, death blow. Or no, he was trying to kill Luke. Excuse me. He was trying to deal 1 damage to Luke to kill Luke, but it failed, and so he traded the Inquisitor, and I think it went downhill from there. So.
Yeah, I agree. But running against like this list of, Morgans is kind of what had me say maybe instead of hunt them down, you wanted that heightened reflexes. Just make sure your opponent is taking damage on the figures that you need to damage them with. If you're going to dive bomb with the Inquisitor in this instance, maybe get rid of that defensive die instead of doing 2 extra damage to someone else that might recover it later with all that defense tech.
Yeah, well, he didn't need it on that Inquisitor attack because Luke rolled a dodge, and so actually Tuca was pretty happy about that because he also had a surge token, but it was Inquisitor's roll.
Yeah.
He just rolled poorly, and and just in general, I think Tuca's rolls were not that great during that game.
You're right. I'm sorry. I forgot his anti-dodge tech built in. You're right.
Yeah, so I think that's the thought process of not needing tools, because he also has a lot of Pierce. I think the only figures that would really benefit from it would be Mara Jade, but I'm not sure. I do like Hunt Them Down. I think being able to deal damage to multiple figures in an activation is what makes this list strong and able to hold its own tempo-wise against some of the other multi-figure activation lists. But yeah, I don't know. I think just that not knowing the damage calcs there when he went in on Luke was unfortunate, and then the die rules too. But it's how it is. So let's go forward to the next one, which is Blaide, which he's not here anymore, but he kind of gave the rundown on his list, so I don't think we have to spend too much time. Which was Jedi Luke IACP, Heir to the Jedi IACP, Zeb IACP, Garkon IACP, Mara Jade IACP, R2D2 Gideon, 3PO, Balance of the Force, and Heroic Effort. Command cards were Son of Skywalker, Iron Will ICP, Heart of Freedom, Furious Charge, which is Garkon's card, Second Chance, Get Behind Me, ICP, 1 Pummel, 1 Negation, Death Blow, Face to Face, which is the Brawler card, Celebration, Element of Surprise, Planning, Take Initiative, and Parry. So, yeah, we kind of talked about this. Anything in the command deck stand out that we didn't talk about already?
I think just that face-to-face, that's ICP, correct?
No. Face-to-face was unaltered. That's the 1-point brawler card that is move 2 spaces, then perform an attack targeting an adjacent figure or object. And it's a brawler card.
Yeah, I think... Okay. Yeah, I think that's fine then.
So all of his figures can use it, because Zeb can use that too.
Yeah, so that's good to get some movement points before an attack. Lately, I've been trying to fit Feint into brawler lists, so I'm like, I wonder where that would have gone here.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting too. I like Feint a lot. Maybe not so much with Zeb, but with Jedi Luke, it's pretty good because he tends to roll dice that doesn't need really. Although the reroll has helped a lot with that.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I think this is the first list. I just want to comment. I think this is the first list we've seen with Celebration. So Tuca and Morgan did not run Celebration, but Blaide is. So I think that's interesting, and I predict we will see more of that, where Celebration starts getting dropped as more and more generic figures pop up in the meta. But yeah. And then I think this is the third list with Mara in the top 4.
Yep.
She's just proving to be in the right place at the right time. She's just positioned really well right now with what figures are good. I think people were saying Inquisitor and Leia were the 2 best figures coming out of Season 7 at the end, and Mara just pairs very well with both of them.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on here, we've got Derek, who made it to the top 4. He was playing Mercenaries, so we have full representation in the top 4 from all 3 factions. He's playing IG-11 IACP, Forlom IACP, who has targeting computer attached, and then he has Hondo, Onaka, Dr. Afro IACP, the Elite Jawa Scavenger, R2D2 Gideon, 3PO, and Temporary Alliance and Beast Tamer. So we'll talk about a little bit about this list. This is the Forlom Beast Tamer strategy that you kind of mentioned. This has been around for a while. I know I like to mention it because he came up with it and played it for the longest time. But Adam, aka Sushi Cat, kind of came up with this idea of Beast Tamer Forlom with like scavenged weaponry is what he usually would run, from what I remember seeing. And then by being a creature, he gains access to cards like Wild Fury. So the idea here is he's kind of this dive bomb figure. He's 5 speed. He's very fragile. He's only 9 health for 7 points. But being a 5 speed figure that you can focus to get 4 dice, he can move 10 spaces, attack something, and then next round he can play Wild Fury, attack twice, and then still get the free move from Beast Tamer to move away before he gets stunned and bleeding. And then he's got IG-11 to kind of back that up, as well as Hondo. So, I should go over the command cards. He has On the Lam, which is nerfed in IACP. Guild Programming, IACP, that's IG-11's card. Worth every credit, Wild Fury. Tools for the job, behind enemy lines, which I actually have to... Oh, you know what? That's not... I think that's a glitch from Tabletop Admiral. That should not be in the list. So rapid recalibration, hit and run, negation, triangulate, IACP, opportunistic, urgency, fleet-footed, planning, take initiative, and element of surprise. So interesting to see 3 movement cards in this list. He has opportunistic, urgency, and fleet-footed, and again, no celebration. So fleet-footed kind of bumping out celebration here. So I guess he felt like he needed that extra movement.
It also works when you're going to Wild Fury, get off multiple attacks, and...
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. If you're using multiple attacks for Wild Fury, you can't use a... I mean, he still gets a free move from Beast Tamer, but makes sense. Yeah, so he did pretty good with this list. IG-11 is just solid. Seeing Hondo coming back is good. Since he's one of the figures that we kind of baseline our power level for IACP cards is Hondo. Although he totally got wrecked in the semifinals against Tuka, who came up at the end of round 1. Lure of the Dark Side on Hondo was focused and one-shotted Forlom. So that was pretty awful for Derek in that game.
Yeah. I think it's interesting here that we're not seeing the droid card that can focus your droid by spending movement points, especially with all the movement we see in this list from command cards.
Yeah, that's true, because he's got IG, Forlom, and then 3PO and R2D2 can redraw 2. I think the card is Shared Experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm not
Shared
seeing
Experience.
that. He doesn't really have a way to use it, though. Like, usually you see Shared Experience as discard fodder for either Zillow Technique or Bib Fortuna. And we don't have either of those. So I think that's probably why we're not seeing that here. And I think he's running Bib so that he can get to 8 activations by using the Rebel Care package. Or not running Bib. Right. So... yeah, I kind of understand why he wouldn't want to bring that if the only thing he can do with it is spend 3 movement points to get focused. Although I guess that would work with Forlom pretty well, though. Yeah, I don't know. Because then you could, you could focus, you could start focus, and then next round use it to focus again, and then get focused again with Wild Fury.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe instead of like hit and run.
Yeah, or maybe just looking at this, maybe with Wild Fury you would want to throw in Rally, but maybe the idea is get off those 3 attacks with Forlom, and then whatever happens to him happens.
Yeah, because rally is, I believe, start of activation.
Hmm.
So you'd have to
Oh,
survive a
right.
round after doing
Yeah,
that.
never mind on that.
Yeah, so I think that makes sense. All right, so that's
The one most interesting thing that I see here, though, is the 1 point card hit and run.
yeah.
I had a game on Friday I played, and someone pulled that out on me, and I had never seen that card before. And then
Mm.
a day after, we see this Derek's finals match, and he also pulls out hit and run. And I didn't even know this existed. I guess it doesn't see a lot of play, but it does seem like a good tech card.
Yeah, I used to see play back in the day. It's not so much anymore because of how offensive oriented the games become, and because it doesn't get you an attack that you wouldn't otherwise have, but it lets you escape afterwards. Um, you see it played. Let's see. So it makes sense for this list, I think, because what he's probably trying to do is be able to pull Forlom back after he does his final attack. So use
Mhm.
this as his final attack, and then with Beast Tamer plus this, he's getting 8 movement to escape, which is pretty good. Um, some of the cool things about hit and run is because it's a special action, you have to spend all the movement points immediately. So it doesn't work like normal. When you like normally get movement points, you have to bank them. This is actually an advantage for this card because if you're like attacking Han Solo or somebody who has return fire, once you do this, you get to move immediately, and that happens before return fire would happen. So this is a good way to escape from those kind of abilities. Um, there's some other tricks you can do. I think I mentioned it in like an old video, but yeah, this is a fun card. It's just usually you don't have room for it because there's other better cards that are better at killing things.
Mm. Interesting. I didn't know that the hit and run movement would take priority over after attack resolution effects.
Yeah, and that's because it's a special action. So people know that urgency, like cards like urgency, is a special action. You have to spend all the movement points immediately. The same thing is
Mm.
true with hit and run because it's a special action. You don't actually bank the movement points. You just get them and then you have to spend them. So that has to happen before any, like as soon as the attack resolves, before anything else. So that means it goes in the queue of after an attack resolves abilities, which is the same as like return fire. It says after attack resolves against you, you perform an attack. So attacker always resolves their abilities first, and when it's after attack resolves, its attacker resolves and the defender resolves. So the attacker would resolve the movement, gaining the movement points from hit and run, and then they would spend them immediately. Again, because it's a special action, and then the defenders after attack resolves abilities would resolve.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a fun little card. It's just you don't find room for it that often.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. So I wanted to talk about the other two in Swiss that didn't make it to top 4 but had a 2-1 record. So we'll talk about Herbie's list first. We kind of touched on this. This is a scum list. He has 2 Rancors from the IACP. Then he has Jabba the Hutt and Dr. Afra IACP. And then he has 3 regular Jawa Scavengers. He has Bib Fortuna IACP, Beast Tamer, Extra Armor, and Smuggling Compartment. And then for the command cards, he has Apex Predator, which is an IACP card. I should mark here. Savage Vigor, which is an IACP card. Worth Every Credit. Parting Blow. So 1 Parting Blow. Wild Fury, Ferocity, Pummel. So 2 Pummels. Brace for Impact, Take Initiative, Parry, ICP, Celebration, Urgency, Planning, and Brace Yourself. And this is a card that I think not a lot of people get to see. It was actually started to get used during the Spectre Cell era because it was so often you get attacked outside of Figure's activation. But it adds +2 blocks when you're defending outside of Figure's activation. And I think this is probably tech against Leia, is what it seems like to me. But let's talk about how this actually works. So he has 2 Rancors, and he has Beast Tamer to move them, and then he has 3 Jawas to feed them. So that's for the Voracious ability. So this is
Right.
this was updated season 7. So they can actually ready and activate again if they eat another figure, another friendly figure. and he's getting all the extra attacks with Pummel and Wild Fury and Ferocity and Parting Blow. I'm kind of surprised he's only running one Parting Blow, but it looks like he needed to make room for either Savage Vigor or Worth Every Credit, and it kind of makes sense. But the Rancor is cool because it can actually trigger its own Parting Blow by being massive, right? If it steps on somebody and they exit, that counts as exiting a space adjacent to the Rancor, because every space that a large figure occupies, that figure is adjacent to that space through the weirdness of the rules of occupying multiple spaces. So, Rancor's a brawler. He can step on somebody and then play Parting Blow. So I was hearing a lot of whispers about this list being like really powerful and scary. I think Morgan mentioned in a separate channel that he wasn't sure how he was going to beat it. I should mention that it did get one bye. So round one, we had a bit of a snafu where somebody joined late, and Herbie had the bye, but we tried to pair Herbie up with the late player, and it just didn't work out. So we had to end up giving Herbie got to keep his bye since he signed up on time. So he was actually 1 win, 1 loss, 1 bye. But yeah, what are your thoughts here? Something I should also mention we're missing here. I don't see Survival Instincts, which was something we were really worried about with the Rancor, and Dr. Afra particularly rebuying that card. So just
now that you mentioned Survival Instincts, it's surprising that we don't see that. I think that's the one that adds a block or an evade for an entire round.
A block and an evade, so it makes you into Boba Fett.
Oh god, yeah, that's scary. And it's surprising we don't see it. I think the reason we don't see as many Parting Blows is because those negative conditions can really affect the Rancor here. In fact, stuns might be one of the counters to this list. Maybe something like Punishing Strike. But it is scary when you've got two giant guys coming down both sides of the map and ready to tear into your face. And no matter what you throw at them, they seem to be just immune to taking much damage. But I think part of it is trying to power through all of their command cards. So if you power through their entire hand of command cards with defensive tech, eventually you get to the point where they're just at 2 blocks or 2 black die. And I think that's when you can start hitting into them, which is still big defensive, Rancor. But 2 black tie can still just roll you 2 blocks, which is not the best defense in a lot of these big attackers in the current meta.
Yeah, especially after we took away their defensive reroll. I think that helped to curb some of that issue. He does run, so he's running Parry, Savage Vigor, just looking at Brace for Impact. So yeah, he does actually have a fair bit of defensive tech in this list. I just want to look up the Savage Vigor. So yeah, cool. Still super cool to see Rancors doing well though, and I think this is like the exact list for them. I'm not sure about double. I think it makes sense though if you think about it, because there's so many cards in the deck dedicated just to the Rancor. So it makes sense to kind of have a backup one to play the rest of them once your first one dies. Because otherwise you get stuck with a bunch of like Wild Furies and Ferocities in your hand that you can't play.
Ooh, here's never mind, I don't think that would work. Never mind. Yeah, I think it's the kind of list that you start out very strong and intimidating, but you're burning steam as you go through the match.
Yeah.
So that's what you need to worry for.
It just becomes like a damage race.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Very impressive though, and very fun to see.
Yeah. All right, and then the last one we'll talk about is Kyle's list. So he was 2-1 in Swiss, but he just missed out on the top 4 due to tiebreakers. So didn't have quite as strong a strength of schedule as the other top 4 players. But we'll go through his list because it definitely is worth talking about. He's playing Rebels. He's got Kotun for Rollo, IACP, 2 rebel saboteurs, IACP, each with... Oh no, one has targeting computer. Then he has Mern Rin from IACP, Saw Gerrera IACP, R2D2 Gideon 3PO, Heavy Fire and Balance of the Force. And then his command deck is New Orders, Maximum Firepower, Overwhelming Impact from IACP, Heart of Freedom, Calm Disruption, Negation, Blitz, Intelligence Leak, Strategic Shift, Collateral Damage, Wild Attack, Take Initiative, Rally, Urgency, and Planning. So 3 3-point command cards in this list, which is cool, and that explains Balance of the Force there. And we got to see this list in round 1, and it was pretty impressive. What Khotun was doing with the saboteurs, feeding them surge tokens, and then also negating a lot of dodges with Deadly Precise, or Dead Precise. Also giving them Hidden with Mern, and then Saw Gerrera. I don't think we saw Saw got to do much, but theoretically being able to threaten a lot of collateral damage with Wanton Destruction.
Mm-hmm.
To add to
and
the
just
blast.
helping to bump up that activation count.
Yeah, I think so. Heavy Fire is really good with Sabs. I've been saying this for a while. Even though they only have 2 attack dice, the fact that they're so cheap means you don't really care about them getting stunned. They have terrible range, so it increases their threat range because you can attack something at infinite range and still ping it with 1 damage. And they have priority target, so even if they're stunned, as long as they're like kind of close to the enemy, you don't have to worry about body blocking. You can just unstun and then attack. And I think that's why we're also seeing Maximum Firepower here. This is a card you don't really see played except by saboteurs, because you can just run them up to the opponent's figures, and then if they get to activate, they have priority target, so they can shoot anything. That doesn't matter about blocking figures. So yeah, and this is really a good way to catch somebody off guard that thinks they're safe from an unfocused saboteur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maximum Firepower, that's the +4 damage one, correct?
Yep, 2 actions, heavy weapon, perform
Yep.
attack +4 damage. And then
Yeah, that's huge.
and we did see New Orders get played. I think he had kind of won the game already at that point, but very powerful to use this off of, let's see, I think Saw is a leader. Mern is a leader too, so Mern can definitely do this without taking much penalty on her actions, because once you're done focusing people or hiding people, she doesn't do a whole lot.
You've also got Gideon and Khotun, who are possible. Khotun's maybe not so much one of your better attackers, but Gideon's there.
Yeah, definitely. And then tons of stun too from the saboteurs. So stun seems to be really effective against a lot of ICP lists lately. There are ways to mitigate it, so bringing just like 1 stun figure is often not quite enough to do it, but when you have 4, it tends to stick.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we even see in this command list, Kyle was worried about his own heavy fire stunning him, so he brought Rally, which I think is good call here. I think we're seeing more of these lists that are doing double sobs with Khotun and Saw, and less lists running Drakata or Cara Dune instead in this season.
Yeah, that's true. We were seeing more Drakata and Cara Dune in the past, and I think Khotun just has such good synergy with the saboteurs since they want more surges, and she's able to mitigate dodges, which otherwise are kind of a problem unless you bring lock on, but that's 2 points, and we can see here like this list is very command point heavy, so it looks like he didn't have space for lock on. Also didn't have space for Reduced to Rebel. I think if I was playing this list, I would probably cut New Orders for Reduced to Rebel, but Kyle plays New Orders all the time, so he's very good at setting it up, so that I think it works. I think it's a good choice for him for his list. But if I were to run this list, which I'm actually kind of interested in running, I would probably cut New Orders for Reduced to Rebel and then some other 1-point card.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Maybe Blitz, but they like their Blitz.
Yeah, well, he has Blitz in there already.
That's what I mean. Cutting Blitz.
Oh, for like another 2-point card?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that might make sense. I'd have to look and see what I would want to run in this list.
I mean, I'm thinking maybe to get your cheap new orders, you run change of plans and wait for one of your groups to only have one left. And then you just activate your two-figure list twice.
Yeah, the change of plans is good. I think maybe cutting, like, I don't know what I would cut though. Oh, he is running Intelligence League, because I was thinking maybe Lock On could go in this list, but you don't really need it with Kotun.
I mean, it's surprising to see no element of surprise here, though, especially with no lock on.
Yeah, that's true. Although, again, I think the thinking there is you have Kotun if you're worried about
Oh,
dodge.
right.
Kind of similar to the Inquisitor list.
Right.
Plus, and then they have so much Pierce. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, this command list looks solid to me. He's got Intel. He's made room for Intel Leak and Strat Shift. Yeah, this looks good. Yeah, I think this list definitely has a lot of potential to do well. I think he just got unlucky with his pairings, unfortunately, where his strength and schedule didn't carry him into the top 4. We didn't have enough time for enough Swiss rounds. So, but yeah, I think that covers it. Unless you had anything else you wanted to say.
No, I think that covers it. I think, I mean, I guess with this list, we can go back and forth on what little command card tweaks we make, but Kyle did good. I mean, like you said, he didn't actually lose a single game. He lost his non-buy round. And they got strength of scheduled out.
Yeah, well, he did. He went 2-1, so he lost one game.
Was it his loss to Herbie?
No, that was Destructor.
Oh, okay, never mind. But still, good list.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Hopefully we'll get this up soon. And thank you to Blaide for coming in. Thank you to Wesley for joining me again, so we can do these weekly chats. They're a lot of fun. And hope you guys tune in later. Wesley, anything you want to plug before we sign out?
I do have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, go ahead.
Second Flock. Yep, just the Second Flock. YouTube. Find that. If you search it, you might find it. Who knows? And maybe I'll post some more videos there.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. We'll catch you next time, and peace out.
All right. Peace out, everyone. Thank you.